Hi guys, it's Mark Zickery, Mr. Sci-Fi, and it's Christmas Day. Merry Christmas to everyone. I'm going to be on Coast to Coast from 10 to midnight tonight, talking Rod Serling's 100th birthday, which is today. But for Christmas, we saw family over the last few days, but for Christmas Day, Elaine and I went to see Nosferatu. And it has a very interesting history, of course, which is that in the late 19th century, Bram Stoker wrote Dracula. He was primarily known as sort of the secretary to a very famous actor of the time, and he was sort of like a second fiddle, like not really considered of great merit. But now Henry Irving is largely forgotten, and Bram Stoker is the the big noise. So as it should be. So Dracula is a great novel. But there's always been a problem with Dracula as a novel. It's epistolary, which is different letters and missives from different characters. The central story of Dracula, where Jonathan Harker goes to Transylvania to meet with him and has his travails there, and then Mina, who is Jonathan's wife, falls under the spell of Dracula, and various other things happen. It's a great story and deserves to be a classic. But as the book goes on, it becomes a little more wacky, where you've got all these characters. There's a cowboy in it, and there's a wealthy British guy, and there's Dr. Seward, and on, and it gets a little bit wacky. They pursue Dracula back to Transylvania, and it's sort of like the ending is much more cluttered than the first part of the book, which seems very, very assured. But nevertheless, it's still a great story, and has spawned many different versions. Now, interestingly, in the 20s, I believe it's 1922, F.W. Murnau, the great German director, decided to do Dracula, but they didn't secure the rights, so they called it Nosferatu, and had Count Orlok, and just changed the names and basically kept the same story. Now, and Bram Stoker's widow sued, and the judge ordered all copies of Nosferatu destroyed. And for many decades, it was thought to be a lost film. My friend Doug Hayes, who directed Twilight Zone, told me that he had longed to see it for many decades, and finally he heard that it was going to be shown in someone's backyard. Someone had a bootleg copy, and it was going to be shown in someone's backyard and projected on the back brick wall of the yard. And he went and saw it, and of course was blown away, because it's a phenomenal film, and Max Schreck played Nosferatu, and the makeup on Schreck is really good. And not everything works in the silent Nosferatu, but it's very strong, very strong, and scary and creepy and evocative and memorable. Then, of course, they made Bela Lugosi starring in Dracula. It started as a stage play. He made a hit in that, and then they made the movie of it around 1930, and it was, of course, iconic as well. Bela Lugosi was more the suave kind of vampire, where Max Schreck had been sort of the monstrous creature, with sort of these rabbit teeth and long ears and long nails and all of that. But these were viable, and then there was a Spanish language Dracula directed on the same sets as Bela Lugosi's Dracula, with a Spanish-speaking cast, and the guy who played Dracula was not credible, but everyone else is really good, and the camera work is really good, so if you have a chance to see it. And then, over the decades, there have been various versions of Dracula, various versions of Nosferatu, including Werner Herzog made one with Klaus Kinski and Isabelle Adjani and Bruno Ganz that was shot both in English and in German. I mean, they literally filmed scenes in those two languages, so there's two different versions of the film, so that it would have a bigger play in the American market. So it's not dubbed, it's literally, they all spoke English, and there you go. So you can watch both versions. And that brings us up to Robert Eggers' Nosferatu, which we just saw. I really liked it. I thought it was a very good experience. It's visually very powerful, very good. Again, and then there's, of course, Francis Ford Coppola's Dracula, which I really like, and which also has a lot of ludicrous stuff in it. But a terrific performance by Gary Oldman, great visuals, many wonderful things to recommend it. But the challenge with a lot of the Dracula stories is the ending, because if you follow the novel, it's very cluttered. It structurally seems really a mistake to have Dracula come from Transylvania and then rush back to Transylvania. but there's always this question. So in Coppola's Dracula, they have this whole backstory where Mina, in a previous life, had been married to him when he was a human, and blah, 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 blah. But they've always been struggling with that. So Nosferatu has the similar problem, but Lily Rose Depp is terrific as the Mina character, and she's very, very good. She's very planted in the role, and very, and they give her a backstory relationship with Nosferatu that really actually does work and is really, really interesting. Bill Skarsgård as Nosferatu is very powerful. He lowers his voice to a much lower register, and he's creepy. And the look of the creature is interesting. Not really as scary as Max Schreck's version. You know, it's like it's okay. It's okay, but you know, not iconic, I wouldn't say. And then Nicholas Hoult, who I think he's one of my favorite actors, and he's a very, very good Jonathan Harker. But I think that, you know, Jonathan Harker and Mina, you know, those two roles, they sustain this film as much as possible. Willem Dafoe is in it, but again, that character of the professor, you know, who's fighting the vampire is always rather problematic and cartoony and broad. Anthony Hopkins was pretty ridiculous in that role in Coppola's Dracula. But the point of this one is, if you have a chance to go see the new Nosferatu, do so. It's beautiful. It has many things to recommend it. The Renfield is very, very good, interestingly enough. That's, of course, a very fun character. Dwight Frye was terrific as Renfield in the Lugosi Dracula. But I think this is fun. I think if you just kind of go where it takes you and don't, you know, just take the ride that it gives you. It's not definitive, but it's very interesting, and it's definitely this director's vision, and you can tell it's made with love every frame of the way. So that's it for now. So we will talk to you very soon, and hope you're having a great holiday. Bye, guys.